Welcome to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. I'm your host, Anne, mama of two, holistic pregnancy and pediatric sleep consultant, and the founder of Empowered Decisions. In our seasons together, I'm here to help you step into your inner confidence from pregnancy to motherhood. Whether you are preparing to meet your baby or integrating into new mom life, this is a safe space with education and support for your journey. Join me as we raise the vibe of our motherhood collective. Welcome back to the Confident Motherhood Podcast. Hi, I'm Anne, your holistic pregnancy and infant and toddler sleep coach, and I'm a mom and I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a mompreneur. I work from home. I own my own business, and I wanted to spend this episode talking about tips, a bit about my journey in how to navigate being a business owner or working from home and also being a mom, because it is a constant juggle. It has been a journey for me over the past 8 years. I have learned so much. And aside from just sharing parts of my story, I really wanted to kind of give you some behind the scenes of resources and help and platforms and websites that I've used along the way to create and sustain my business that have allowed me that balance with mom life to make things a whole hell of a lot easier. Side note, I hope that this can be edited out of this episode, but I have a fire alarm smoke detector that is beeping in the background and I cannot escape it in my house. So I'm hoping that it's not terribly distracting and it can be edited out, but let's get started. So I was actually laughing to myself when I was preparing for this episode because I was going to kick off and say, I am very type A, like I am very planner and organized and list. And then I looked up the definition of type A and I was like, oh, maybe this is a little bit different than I have kind of always described myself to be. So I want to read this to you because I actually thought that it was interesting. A type A personality is characterized by traits such as competitiveness, check, drive, ambition, urgency, check. Individuals with this personality type are often highly motivated and successful, but they also exhibit impatience, hostility, and increased stress levels. So I was like, well, that might not be true considering being a mom and trying to be a business owner can definitely create some increased stress levels, which can lead to health risk. And I was like, oh, okay, this is taking a little bit of a left turn. But I would describe myself as type A very much in this way. I'm very competitive and driven and ambitious and, kind of work well under pressure, but it does come along with a lot of stress. And I feel that a lot of this I've had to kind of heal and work on over the years. So I share this to say that having to juggle anything in life, but having to juggle mom life and running a business or just working from home, because this episode really isn't only about if you're an entrepreneur and you have your own business, because so many moms, right? We are talking tens of thousands of moms are juggling full-time, part-time jobs while being at home and being caregivers for their children. And I think that I bring up this, personality trait of being type A, whether you're type A, B, or C, and it requires being really organized and having a grasp of what you need to be doing on your day-to-day, because outside of work life, we have the constant mental load that we carry around. Everything that is needed from sunup to sundown and in between with our children. And that takes up a lot of real estate in our mind. So one thing that's really important to me is always having a priority list of what needs to be done. But fun fact, not everything can be 911. Not everything can be urgent. So I'll always kind of do like a weekly to-do list of like, hey, what does the week look like? What are the big to-dos? And then daily I will prioritize. Today, usually it's broken down, at a max, it'd probably be 5 things, but usually 2 to 3 things. Like, what are the 2 to 3 things? Like today, recording 2 podcast episodes is on my list. So what are the 2 to 3 things that are going to take priority? Because kids and taking care of small children also takes priority, and it is a constant juggle. So I think the first thing that is always, really benefited me over the years is the fact that I'm naturally more of a planner, a list maker, and more organized. And it's very exciting to me when I get to cross something off of my list. But nonetheless, finding your own way to be organized and what that looks like for you is very person to person. And just because something works for me does not mean that it has to work for you. But I think if we're constantly heading into each day with more chaos and less organization, generally it's going to be harder. And I think then all things suffer. Then I think we're not really excelling at any one thing. We're just kind of surviving through all of those things, whether it's our work, our own business, or just being in motherhood. So my first advice is going to be being organized. And I have a couple websites, couple platforms that I want to share with you that allows me to keep things in one place and be organized. So one is a website called Milanote, Milanote. and I have different kind of boards for things. I'll actually go into mine right now and share some of that with you. So it has like a homepage and you can kind of customize it. I even have some photos of my kids on here. And then I have different boards. So I have like a finance board and like my personal growth board and my podcast board and my business board and things that I have to do for my kids, just like kind of like family stuff. So I build out lists. I like a weekly list and, checking in on bills and all of those different things. So this is kind of my home base for just my weekly to-dos, but also for my business. And I really love how you can organize it by all of these different categories in your life. So the next one that I want to share with you, which actually my OBM, my online business or business manager, which I'm going to talk about her here for a little bit, is another website or a platform called ClickUp. ClickUp is quite possibly the number one thing that keeps me organized in my business. All the different projects from my sleep coaching clients to pregnancy business to podcasting to like so many things because it is so detailed. And one thing that I love about it in using it for my sleep coaching clients is once somebody books with me and they kind of get added into ClickUp, I get to see their entire journey and where they're at. I get to leave notes. I know who is just booked to who is onboarding to who's getting started from sleep coaching, who I'm doing calls with, who I'm wrapping up with. And it really takes that mental load piece that I used to carry in my business in my mind, gets it out, it's organized. I can check into ClickUp, go through my client list and any other projects that I'm working on, and it keeps me really organized. So I think between those two, even if you didn't have anything else, between Milano and ClickUp, and there's other apps and platforms that I've heard of, like Notion is another one that I hear business owners talk about that they really love. So I think it's just kind of playing around and being like, okay, what fits the needs of my life, whether it's just organizing mom life or it's your business, and testing them out, because I've tested out other ones over the years. I'm like, this doesn't really work for me. So I think doing some testing is really important. Okay, then I'm going to segue a little bit and kind of talk about what brought me here. Because I used to be in the corporate world. I worked in corporate apparel, sourcing and production for a long time. And I went on maternity leave with my first son, and he was about 8 weeks old. He's the entire reason I'm a sleep coach. But I went on mat leave, and the newborn phase was really challenging with him. Sleep was horrific, if you will. And I was really struggling and already started thinking like, how am I going to go back to work? Like there were so many challenges that I was facing. And by the way, the full moon is right directly out of my window right now, which is so beautiful. The full moon was actually last night, but you know how it's like a few days before and a few days after. And I feel always so lucky when I get to sit at my desk and I get to see it. Anyways, total sidebar, but it just distracted me. So I am on maternity leave and I was struggling with sleep, and a friend was shared with me. She came to visit and shared with me that they had worked with a sleep coach and got their 1-year-old sleeping. I remember thinking at the time two things. One, excuse me, I'm not going to make it 12 months with the sleep struggle, so please tell me what you're talking about. And two, I had never heard of the job of somebody being a sleep coach, but I was immediately pulled in to be like, what is that? I want to learn more, because I kind of knew that I had a timeline on being able to be in that sort of corporate job. And I struggled with, how is this going to be sustainable? I felt like it was going to pull me away from the type of mom life that I wanted. So I kind of just had my feelers out, albeit I really loved my job. I was good at what I did, and I wasn't really sure what starting over looked like. So a seed was planted, and on maternity leave, because apparently I didn't have enough going on, struggling with my son and his sleep and our journey together, that I decided to go through a certification process and become a sleep coach. And I did that on the side, nights and weekends, for the entire first year and a half of his life. And I went back to work when he was 5 months old. And I don't know what I was thinking. I really don't. Like, it was so crazy to try to navigate being a new mom for the first time and to go back to this corporate job and to then have another job on the side. And I naively at the time was like, oh, I'm just going to build this business. Then I'm going to be able to walk away from my corporate job. And yeah, no, that's not how that works. So I got to a point, he was, 16, 17, somewhere around there months. And I was starting to feel it. Like, it's time for me to walk away from this corporate job. And I never really felt like I was going to be able to give sleep coaching what it deserved to really see if I could, thrive in it and grow a business if I didn't throw all of myself into it. My time was already split in many different ways. So I decided to walk away from that corporate job, which was bittersweet because I had done that for a very long time, and decided to go full throttle with sleep coaching. And I coached alongside of a brand for a few years. business before ultimately for the past few years, I walked away and I have been out on my own, and my business is called Empowered Decisions. A lot of my socials are Empowered with Anne, but it is sleep coaching. And then I also do like pregnancy mentorship, pregnancy coaching, helping women on their journeys. And in that process of going from kind of just, nights and weekends, doing it on the side and working alongside of a brand was very different from like starting my own business and having to do things essentially kind of from scratch again, even though I had been in this career for some time. And that was really when I had to figure out how all of this was going to work for me and how I was going to juggle this, essentially being a stay-at-home mom, a work-from-home mom. So things and, being very type A and kind of naturally being driven in that way and finding ways to be organized. But honestly, I don't know how. I think about this oftentimes with even other parents and women, whatnot. I would not have been able to pick up a side job when I had a young baby. I would not have been able to go back to work. I would not have been able to walk away from my job. I would not have been able to grow a business, start a business over again if my child didn't sleep. If I couldn't depend and predict his sleep and his schedule and have those routines, it wouldn't have happened. And sleep was so much of a struggle early on because he needed my boob in his mouth to fall asleep. I was a human pacifier. I nursed him long term and coached him at 4 months. But ultimately, there was no consistency. There was no predictability. Like I was up multiple times a night. I was lucky if I maybe got 1 or 2 naps out of him in the daytime. There was no consistency. Getting him sleeping, and of course, him then being well rested, me being well rested, opened me up to a whole new world where I then had the actual capacity, emotional, mental capacity, but the spiritual capacity to really go within and be like, what do I desire for my life? What do I want? Right? Like I've always been very career driven, and I knew that was going to shift for me when I became a mom, but I'm like, what do I want this to look like? So even fast forward, my eldest just turned 8 this summer. My youngest is 3. And I just put them to bed a little bit ago, and now I'm recording a podcast episode. I plan into when it's nap time. I plan in my entire work schedule into when they are sleeping, especially if I don't have, other support and whatnot, nanny support, that sort of thing. But I'm like, my entire journey has been heavily dependent on the fact that my children sleep. And I think that oftentimes in motherhood, we do a lot of suffering in silence and like, oh, we'll sleep when they're older. And a lot of moms obviously just don't know that there's options out there to get their little ones sleeping. But that's what I do for a job. And I know that it's so cliche as a sleep coach to be sharing about this episode about my mompreneur journey, but it was heavily dependent on the fact that I could depend on my child's sleep. So I can't like transparently get through this conversation without saying that that is a big part of why I get to do what I do and take the clients that I can take and work when I can work, because of the consistency and predictability that I do have around my kids' sleep. Okay, now let's kind of switch gears, and I'm going to give you some behind the scenes of kind of how I plan things out and the type of, I don't have the team that I want to have yet. I'm getting there, but I do want to kind of share some resources that can help you on your journey, because as moms, I think we by nature just try to take it all on. I'm so guilty of that over the years. Like we have to do it all. We have to learn it all, and, seeking help and resources, like it's not always the easiest thing. So in the reality of mom life, and I also homeschool, so there's a lot of juggling that happens, but I keep my schedule pretty tight. And by that, I mean with my own clients. And again, every business is different, every career, every field is different. So me working in the consulting capacity, right, in services, I get to plan my own schedule, but I keep it tight within 1 to 2 weeks, because mom life changes a lot. You never know, kids are getting sick or what activities they have or whatever the case may be. So I don't have the type of business where I plan like 2 months in advance. Yes, there are times where families will book me in advance, and that's very easy to do. But generally, my schedule, when I'm opening up calls, when I'm scheduling consultations, when I'm taking new families, when I'm like even planning out when I'm doing like webinars and things like that, I keep it pretty tight within 1 to 2 weeks, because it allows me to stay a little bit more flexible. Then when I try to push things out too far or schedule things out too far, and then things end up getting pushed, which I do not love. So that is one thing. I keep my schedule tight and I keep it flexible. And if I am within a week and I already start to see things change with my kids and their schedules, I immediately can pivot and be like, hey, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to move this here. You lose your sitter, you lose your nanny, a kid gets sick, a family needs to reschedule. My schedule literally day in and day out, week to week, month to month is never the same. And I am so used to that. I've been working in this way for so long. So it's not of stress for me. But if you're somebody who relies on that sort of predictability, you just need to plan into it. But for me, keeping things tight is the easiest. Then I think a big one for me has been how I seek out support, how I seek out who is going to be helping me in my business. And it all started for me. I mentioned my online business manager, my OBM, shout out Carolina. She's incredible. And early on, I'm like, okay, I need a website. I need this. There were things that I needed built and created. And I am one who I always have tons of creative ideas and I know what I want to do, but I don't always know how to execute them. And that really overwhelms me. I can kind of get to places in the past where I'll shut down. I'll have all these great ideas. And then I'm like, well, how do I pull it off? And then I feel like I want to give up in a capacity. So early on, I hired her and I still work with her to this day. She's incredible and has become a really close friend of mine. And I think where you bring people onto your team or you have people in your life where they excel and their competencies, their core competencies, their strengths also really counterbalance where you have weaknesses, I think has always been the genius in our relationship, where she can really build out these things and these systems and these automations, but also really support my goals and my dreams. And I shared this with her not that long ago that I'm really thankful for her, because to bring anybody, I don't care if you're bringing it to your mom, your friend, your whoever it is, and you're like, hey, I have this idea. And somebody just like gasses you up. They're like, yeah, that's amazing. You should totally do that. That's Carolina for me in my business. I bring something to her and she's like, yeah, boom, let's do it. Here's what you could do it this, you could do it that. I could create this for you. And I think that having somebody, whether you're hiring a VA, right, like a virtual assistant, or you're hiring some sort of partner, or you have a mentor in your business, or you're hiring an OBM, having somebody who is going to like gas you up in that way to really just believe in what you're trying to create and what you're trying to put out into the world is really important. And on top of kind of the organization skills, she was the one who put me on to ClickUp. I've had to kind of bite the bullet and be like, I need help. I can't do it all on my own, especially being a mom and being a mom who works from home. So while I don't have the, team that I want yet, where I have somebody handling my marketing and I have somebody doing this and somebody doing that, having an OBM has been a game changer for me. Hiring a VA, a virtual assistant. I don't have a consistent VA, but I use VA work by project and by need, which took me some time. I don't know why it was so hard for me to get to the place where I'm like, Anne, you need help. You cannot do this all on your own, but to be able to take your own ideas and pass them off to somebody and be like, hey, let's work together and this is what I want to create. You can do that by project. A website that I use when I outsource the support that I need in that way, whether you need an editor, you need somebody to do YouTube for you, Canva, whatever it is. I use a website called Upwork, Upwork, and you kind of put in what your needs are and you just have access to people literally all around the world. You can see their hourly rates, you can see their portfolios and their projects, and you can kind of put it out and go back and forth until you find somebody you feel like is a great fit, test them out. And I have a few people that I have hired and consistently use off Upwork. That has been incredible. But it took me some time to kind of relinquish. I think it usually all comes down to control, right? Where we just want to control things and nope, it needs to be my way or I'll just do it. So I think that it's really important to kind of identify, where do I excel in my business and what I'm trying to create? What are not my core competencies? What do I think that I need help with? And just start sourcing and testing it out. I think what I struggled with early on is like, I don't have the money to be paying for these people, but I also need to pay the people so that I have the things so I can create this in my business. So it was kind of always this balance back and forth, but I think source what you can source out and just test it out. Okay, going back to Carolina and having an online business manager. This woman is so, just the role of an OBM is, I feel like it's so underrated. One thing that has really allowed me to thrive in mom life alongside running a business from my house is automations. Now, this is something that she excels at so well. So here's an example of this. Somebody would book with me through my, platform. And then I would get an email that they booked. And then I would get on email and I would send them a welcome email and I would send them this link to do this and this link to sign this or whatever. I had to touch it. I had to touch every step of the effing process. That takes time, because guess what if I'm at the grocery store? Guess what I'm with my kids here? What if I'm on with a client, right? And that was something that I had to touch versus being automated. So when I brought her into the business and she was seeing all these behind the scenes things, she was like, hey, you're really in need of some automations here. And that's something that we can create together. And that has really freed me up, that the business is running even when I can't touch it, which allows me more time to dedicate to myself, to my kids, to my home, to my client when I'm not kind of in the mud, right? Like I'm not in the nitty gritty of what's going on in that part of the business. And the automations have evolved for me over time where I now have more automations than I had before. That just gives me the one-on-one and the personal coaching that I do with families. When families are in containers with me, they got me. Like you have me for 2 weeks. There is not some computer or some virtual assistant or whoever who's working with you. I have sourced out those things to help me run my business. But because of that, I get to be more dedicated to you and my family. And that really matters. So I think it took somebody else coming into my business to be like, hey, this is consuming a lot of your time. And this is really important that I can help you create so that it can free you up. So I highly recommend whenever you have some new eyes on your business, it can really open you up to just help you run more efficiently, more productively, which again, just allows you to pour back into yourself and your children. Then I think another thing that, I don't know, I think in a way kind of, it's always been an easier thing for me is actually my son, ironically enough, asked me today, I think he heard it on one of the shows that he was watching. He's like, Mommy, what's pivot? And I'm like, pivot? And I'm like, where did you hear it? And so he was telling me he was watching this show and they were talking about pivoting. And I'm like, let's talk about pivot. I said, pivot is kind of where you need to, and at first I kind of gave him like the business answer, right? I was like, this is where you kind of assess. Like I said, how I'm always creating things in my business. He's like, yeah, because I always share things with him. I said, sometimes things aren't working and I need to pivot, meaning I need to kind of change directions. I need to look at something a different way. Whichever way I was going, sometimes we need to take a different direction. And then it made me think of the Friends episode where they're trying to get the couch upstairs and Ross is like, pivot. So I was like giving him these couple, like a business example and a silly example, but pivoting is so crucial. And I think pivoting is a mix. It's like pivoting when you're a business owner and you're creating things or you're working from home and you're always assessing what's working and what's not working, but then pivoting because you're a mom, right? Like if I wake up and I have my entire day lined up and one of my kids is sick or something happens, like I have to pivot my entire day. And that used to stress me out a lot early on. I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to move these clients, I have to do these things. And now I think I've just mastered the art of pivoting. Like it's just something where I'm like, okay, well, if it was meant to be different today, then it was meant to be different. But it's taken me some time to get there. So if you're somebody who struggles with change a little bit more or really needs that consistency, I think one, being the deeper you are into mom life, you just get so used to the art of pivoting. But being a business owner and, being at home with your kids or working from home, whatever the case may be, whatever the situation looks like for you, being open to change and flexibility and knowing that things aren't always going to look exactly how you want it to look in your day to day and being able to pivot can literally be a game changer for you. Okay, we're going to wrap up this episode kind of going within because I want to be really honest with you that starting a business and running a business and being a mom really makes you question lots of things. And there's so many moments, like I don't have an ounce of give up in me, if I'm being completely fucking honest. I don't. Like, there's no giving up for me. And when I believe in something, that's it. But it's not to say that there's not moments where you don't have this, like, should I quit? Should I just give up? Is this right? Is this going to work? Is this ever going to happen? Is this going to take off? Whatever the case may be. And it requires you to have such a strong why. And I don't know why I feel myself getting emotional right now, but my kids are my why. Like I said, I don't have an ounce of give up. I am my why. Like I have a purpose. And while I was in, like I said, a corporate world for a long time, I was badass at what I did. I loved what I did. It wasn't filling my purpose. It wasn't like fueling me from the inside out. And once I stepped into the world of sleep coaching and, later on the business has evolved, but it fuels me to be able to have been connected and to help like hundreds and hundreds of families and women. And like, it really is something that matters to me to, just a couple years ago, expand the business and to help women on their pregnancy journeys and taking control of your journey. That matters to me. So owning a business is not easy. Running a business is not easy. And I don't care whatever field, mom, not mom, whatever you are, none of it's easy. But having a really strong why and always kind of having to go back to those whys when you're having those tougher seasons, because I've had the seasons where I'm killing it. This is incredible. And then other seasons where I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? that I think goes back to the art of pivoting and always being able to kind of check yourself. Because I think when you're in your business a lot too, sometimes you have some blinders on to, oh, why am I even doing this way? I could be doing it this, or this could run more efficiently, or we're getting that out of here. Do I even love that anymore? Do I love it? Do I not? And just really being on fire and loving what services, what products, whatever it is that you're putting out into the world. But having a really strong why is going to help you navigate the easy seasons and the not so easy seasons. And if you're still tuned in to this episode and you have created life and you are creating, have created, or working from home, whatever it is, we wear so many hats and we get pulled in a million different directions all day long. And it's not easy. And I just want to say that I see you and I feel you and you're incredible. And your kids see it all. They really see it all. They see how hard mommy works. But do not forget to pour into yourself. And I know that sounds so cliche because we hear it all. You can't pour from an empty cup. You can't. And I've had to learn that the hard way, running myself into the ground over the years, trying to push and create and more and dread and hustle and all these things. That shit is by the wayside at this point. Like, we create from a place of feminine energy, and our masculine energy, because we all have that balance, does help us to organize and execute and pull these things off. But if we do not pour in from ourselves and be aligned in that divine connection, we cannot create from that place. I've been in that place many times in my business where I'm like creating and executing from a place of that masculine energy, and I burn out. I burn out every effing time. So I'm always kind of going within now to be like, okay, how am I feeling today? What do I need? Like, asking myself those questions, just like I would ask my own children, what do you need? So that I make sure that I am always in my business, creating in my business and executing in my business first from that place of feminine energy, and then letting what does so well, because I spent many, many years in more masculine energy, like allowing my masculine to come in and get the job done. So just don't forget to really go within, whether you're on a healing journey, whether you're kind of figuring things out, whether you're newly in your business, you're seasoned in your business, whatever the case may be, that we are magical beings, magical, creative beings. And I really feel like women run the world, but please do not forget that you have to pour into yourself first, whatever that looks like for you, because whatever you're creating, the world needs it. I hope that this episode was helpful, insightful. You took away some takeaways or things that might help you in your own business. Being a mom and running a business is like the coolest thing and also the hardest thing at the same time. But until the next episode, lots of love. Whether you're a tired mom struggling with your little one's sleep or an expecting mom looking for empowerment and advocacy as you prepare for birth, I'm here to show up for you with proven strategies and education to elevate your journey. You deserve to feel heard and given the tools to have success. Mama, you do not have to navigate your pregnancy or sleep struggles alone. Head over to empoweredwithann.com to discover how we can support you. Confidence, empowerment, and peace are just a click away.